to this Kodiak Hub Embark webinar. I really appreciate you all joining in on today's session. It's a special session, of course. We will all know where we were on this February 29th, as it only happens once every fourth year. So thank you for joining me on this very special leap year day. My name is Sam Jenks, and I'll be hosting today's session. We'll wait just a moment more to allow some of the last of the attendees to be able to start filing in, and we'll get into the day's session. Fantastic. The clock has now struck 3 p.m. Central European time, 14 or 2 p.m. UK time. Let's get started. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sam Jenks. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Kodiak Hub, and I'll be hosting today's webinar. This is the second part to our three-part series of the Kodiak Hub Embark demo series, where we're diving into specific elements of our platform piece by piece. The first session, of course, was diving into the importance of turning supplier information into actionable insights, which can drive improvement and impact within your global supply chains. This session will be focused on advanced collaboration, really seeing how orchestrating different types of relationship management via advanced collaboration tools can be able to create a rather symphonious, I don't even know if that's a word, harmonious symphony within your supply chain. The session today will be running about 30 minutes, and we will also finish off with a Q&A session. So about 5 to 10 minutes of content, 10 minutes or so of demonstration, and we'll get into a Q&A as well. I'm joined in the background as well by my colleague, Dave. Thank you, Dave Olson, for the creation of today's content. That is something not to be forgotten. Additionally, I'm joined as well by my second co-host, as I often am, Charlie, the office dog, who's lying on a chair right next to me here in one of our meeting rooms. And if you hear Charlie barking, it's because he's opinionated or he has a viewpoint on the day's session. So we'll hope that he can pretty much hold his point of view to himself during today. We're very happy, of course, to see a blend of customers, existing customers, those that are prospective customers, consultants, as well as then partners in today's session. And we will get started very shortly with the day's content. But for those of you that don't know about Kodiak Hub, short about us, Kodiak is a best of breed within the supplier relationship management space. Our solution helps procurement and sourcing professionals to be able to build smarter and more sustainable supplier relationships. We provide an ecosystem of solutions and modules as seen on screen here, providing our clients with the capabilities to manage supplier information, data, documentation, risk, compliance, performance, and collaboration, all from the same platform. And during the course of today's Embark webinar, of course, we'll dive a little bit deeper into Kodiak during the demo session, where we'll get an understanding of how our solution can help you and your team get closer to the pulse of your supply chain, transforming, of course, also the collaboration that you have with your suppliers. With that said, on to the agenda for today's webinar. We're in the midst of the introduction, but during the next 25 to 30 minutes each, we'll then cover the following points. First and foremost, starting with a little bit of a background on the current demands that we're seeing within the space of procurement and how that demands collaboration between you and your supplier base. We'll talk a little bit more about how the tooling within Kodiak Hub and our SRM platform can be able to orchestrate success with advanced collaboration capabilities. And then we'll finally kind of shift into a Q&A. And again, as I've marked down in the chat bubble, please feel free to be able to put down any questions that you might have or comments that you might have during the session. And we'll be feel free to do that during the session, because we'll be getting around to those at the end of today's webinar once we do the Q&A. A friendly reminder as we start today's session surrounding more advanced collaboration with suppliers. Well, suppliers are your friends, not food, inspired a bit by Finding Nemo here. But in all seriousness, harnessing collaboration and supplier-enabled innovation is really paramount in today's business context, and is going to be paramount for the success and the business impact of a procurement function. Traditional methods, right, of negotiation and tactics surrounding supplier management, banging our fists on the table and demanding better prices or faster delivery, improved quality, those are tactics of the past. Today, we want to highlight the importance of switching from a combative to a collaborative supplier relationship and managing your suppliers as such. Your procurement team has new expectations in 2024. This is a fact. Just like sales is always going to be measured on revenue growth, we recognize that you and your procurement organizations will always be measured on cost savings and risk mitigation. This isn't going anywhere, but this is the traditional role of procurement. We believe that these are still relevant in 2024, but the role is also shifting as well. The expectations on procurement as a function have grown far and wide beyond savings and cost. Procurement is now responsible for serving really as the tip of the spear in various business efforts, whether that be to create more transparency in the supply chain, work with ESG efforts, to ensure resilience in a global supply chain, to avoid disruptions and or to drive innovation together with suppliers. It's very important that procurement is involved in all of these activities. All the while, there is a legislation tsunami heading directly in your direction. CSDDD, LKSG, SRS, CBAM, you name it. I could list the legislations for days and days that are coming your way. I mean, being close to the pulse of the supply chain right now is more important than ever to be able to ensure that you're going to be able to address this legislative tsunami heading your way. And good governance and due diligence is no longer just a nice to have. This is something that is becoming the law. As unsexy as it might be, it's going to be a future for everyone. A collaborative supplier relationship is going to be necessary. That engagement between procurement and supply chain is going to be the focus that will take you to meeting these legislation requirements. And without good cooperation, there will be no compliance. Combining the most recent years of supply chain disruption seen by a post-pandemic world and the heightened state of geopolitical affairs, also with the fact that 2024 is going to be the biggest election year globally, year to date, it makes for a pretty interesting time to be conducting business, especially in a global context. Collaboration with your suppliers is going to be necessary. Reimagination, of the supply chain is going to be necessary. Ensuring that you're nearshoring, friendshoring, working towards different types of, navigating a global supply chain means also to really ensure that you're going to be close to the pulse of who you're working with. A focus on supplier collaboration is really focused on turning your relationships from those that are rather just transactional to transformational. I think that it's important that anyone that's looking for a new relationship is going to focus on good process and good tooling to be able to get there, ensuring that you become not only just a customer, but a customer of choice, and a procurement function that wants a supplier to collaborate with them should also be, a procurement function that a supplier wants to collaborate with. By adopting advanced collaboration tools, this can be able to support your efforts in really improving your internal as well as your external collaboration. But creating a symphony within your supplier base is not just focused on the supplier base itself. It's also about really removing barriers that exist maybe within your existing internal processes and or your teams to be able to build greater visibility. This is a struggle that many of you may recognize, right? A simple example of where improved internal collaboration can really create great benefits within supplier relationship management related to a supplier qualification process, which can often be lengthy and create, multiple steps in an organization with a lot of friction, as well as tons of manual work between different parties. Process orchestration, what we're suggesting is kind of the future of supplier management, is about really improving collaboration both internally but also externally to get stakeholders and suppliers in a place where they're all really singing from the same hymn sheet. This is important, of course, to ensure that you and your suppliers are not just focused on, again, a transactional relationship, but in a position to be able to create a transformational relationship. We believe that when you're trying to create a symphony within your supply chain, it's important that you orchestrate these activities properly. Good processes, good systems, good ways of working are necessary to be able to move your relationships from transactional to transformational, and to move also from being just focused on compliance to being focused on collaboration and cooperation. But again, this requires good frameworks and requires good tooling to be able to ensure that you're able to manage your suppliers in a systematic manner. Speaking of such, I'd like to now shift over to the demo session and the portion of our presentation where we'll be introducing a little bit more of how Kodiak Hub's platform is able to provide our clients with the capabilities necessary to manage advanced collaboration with suppliers and really create a symphony within that supply chain. And I will do so now. Again, if you have any questions during today's demo or about the content that's been presented so far, please feel free to put those into the chat bubble during the session, and we will absolutely get around to them during the Q&A session during the last 3 to 5 minutes. So hopefully now everyone is able to see my screen again here. Welcome into the Kodiak Hub platform. At a glance, when we enter into the platform, there's a few different entry points or interfaces that we can be able to see. The first one that we're seeing here, as you see on screen, is our global supply chain. We could be able to filter the supply chain as we see fit. These were some of the elements that we covered during last week's session surrounding how we turn supplier information into real supply chain impact. Today, we're going to be trying to cover primarily items related back again to supplier collaboration and how collaboration tooling can help you and your suppliers to be able to drive forward collaboration, your cooperation, but also innovation within the supply chain. There's 3 main pillars to our platform: insights, impact, and intelligence. Within the insights tab, this is where you're going to be able to dig deeper into your supply chain, your suppliers that are being managed in the platform. Your supplier lists are visible here. It's where you can add new suppliers, import data, export data directly from the same interface. It's also where, for example, you could be able to have pre-saved lists. Say as a category manager, I want to be able to quickly identify a pre-saved list of suppliers in my category. Well, I can have that as a default view. I can also utilize or take away, as we see here on screen, various types of filters, which are then visible throughout the solution to allow us to segment our supplier base and filter up or down the supplier groupings as we would like to. We can also directly from this interface dive into an individual supplier scorecard. This supplier scorecard is where we're going to be able to see data, documentation, third-party risk insights, the ESG risk compliance profile of the supplier, the performance profile, as well as then where we can also see the ongoing communication. Underneath the impact section, this is where we're going to be able to manage assessments, audits, performance evaluations, as well as where we can be able to manage actions. The action space is our collaboration space. This is where we're going to be able to dive deeper into communication with our suppliers in shared portals. It allows us to be able to drive corrective actions, different types of improvement proposals, different types of communication, whether that's sharing of meeting notes, negotiating contracts, internal processes that might be needing orchestrating, such as approvals, onboarding processes. There's a lot of different applications for this particular tooling, and we'll show a little bit more about that in just a moment. If I jump back though to a supplier scorecard, I can show also a little bit of how These types of collaboration tools can be utilized to really drive forward the relationship. As we're seeing here, we're seeing a 360-degree view of our supplier. Here, for example, we can also see the country risk, as well as then the individual ESG and or the compliance profile of this individual supplier, as well as we can be able to see the performance profile of this supplier. The performance elements we're going to be diving deeper into next week. One of the ways that, of course, collaboration can be kicked off, though, is through maybe improvements that are needed and or a nonconformity that's seen, some type of corrective action that needs to be initiated with the supplier. In this particular example, we're able to, for example, dive deeper into the area of delivery and supply chain performance rating. This data can be gathered then from internal stakeholder evaluations or fed directly via KPIs from an ERP solution or alike, allowing us to be able to get a snapshot of the various KPIs, but also to be able to weight and rate these over time. So we can be able to clearly see value progression. Is a supplier getting better or are they getting worse? In this particular example, well, maybe we see that a supplier's dipping within their performance surrounding on time and full. We can also be able to see that previous or recent reports that have come back in on our self-assessments are not really so good. We see that, for example, there's multiple areas where this supplier has been marked as non-compliant with our particular expectations and acceptance criteria. This might trigger the need, for example, for a corrective action or an improvement proposal, whether that be related back again to their overall risk and compliance profile and or their performance. From this particular interface, we can be able to, of course, see any of those ongoing actions, just in the same way that related back to the compliance bit, we can be able to see, for example, any documentation that has been shared with us, whether that be documents surrounding then the compliance profile of the supplier. We can also, though, of course, be able to keep commercial documentation in this interface as well. So the supplier is able to share documents with us as we are able to upload documents into the platform as well. Additionally, again, the previous communication, ongoing communication, or new communication can also be found from one interface. So, for example, I can be able to quickly see any of the ongoing or approved and or brand new corrective action plans or claims or improvement proposals, onboarding activities, trainings that I have ongoing with a supplier. And directly from this interface, as you see, I can also be able to press on an add new button to be able to add a new activity. I can also just search for these individually as far as actions goes to be able to quickly see those individual actions here, or I can be able to search for those based upon their status. Directly from this interface, I can, of course, dive into these individual actions as well. Say then, for example, that I see something that requires a corrective action. This is a perfect example of a use of this particular module. We could be able to then ensure that our supplier is in fact improving, keeping all of that communication reposited, as well as then from the same interface here, we can be able to very quickly request documentation of this supplier. The supplier will be able to access this exact same interface, being able to see everything except for the top bar of the different navigations. And they will be able to communicate back and forth just in the same way that we can. There will then be a timestamp of who it is that's left that particular response, as well as when it was left. The supplier themselves will be able to upload documentation that is requested of them. We as well can be able to upload other documents that are for reference of that supplier. And everybody can be able to see exactly where this action is, as well as the meaning of this particular action. Any documents that are shared in this interface will also directly be reposited in the supplier scorecard, typified and marked with expiry dates if needed, which of course will trigger notifications for renewals and alike. And the beautiful thing, of course, is that we're not having to go and chase down documents during a collaboration activity and then upload them somewhere else or try and find them in our inbox. As we also see, there's the capability to be able to set various sub-actions. These sub-actions can be started and or completed as we see fit, and they can also be an additional guidance to the supplier or ourselves as to where we are in this particular activity. What we also see is that we can be able to involve multiple stakeholders in an individual action. What the beauty of this is that I can, as a user, be able to keep an eye not only on the activities that I have ongoing with a supplier, but the collaboration maybe that other users might have ongoing with a supplier. A perfect example, maybe somebody's out. Well, I might want to be able to see, well, what are those different types of actions, for example, that a few of these different users have ongoing? Well, then I'll apply that particular filter. And I'll then look at the type being, well, I only want to see the corrective actions, the development projects, the improvement proposals, and those things related to onboarding. I can continue to utilize filters to quickly find all of these different activities and filter up or down in the way that I see fit. I can also be able to utilize this not only based upon who is involved, I can look at it based upon the due date or the status as well. I can also be able to look at this data based upon the supplier filters. So say, for example, I want to then also filter down to only see suppliers with a particular grouping or tagging in a particular category or segment. Well, then again, I can utilize these different overlays to quickly pull forward data as I see fit. This gives me a collaboration space to not only communicate back and forth with my team, but also, again, with the supplier, pushing things forward and keeping all the communication reposited in one place, any documentation that's been shared in one place, allowing us to be able to have a really nice platform of understanding for the collaboration that is ongoing with a supplier. The beautiful thing is that it can also be able to open up opportunities for multiple stakeholder responsibilities. As we see here, for example, we've involved multiple stakeholders in this same activity. Why? Is maybe because during as we see here, onboarding process, we might want to be orchestrating that each individual person has a different activity in which they might be needing to do when they're going to onboard or approve this individual supplier, in that case, as a deeper dive. There's other collaboration activities that can be managed within the platform between the supplier as well as ourselves. Some collaboration capabilities, of course, can be managed within the assessment capabilities. Here we can be able to build up templates, run campaigns, and get back reports. These campaigns are able to roll out to multiple suppliers at once, whether that is then communicating things with them via the campaigning capabilities with larger or broader emails to our supplier base. We can also utilize this capabilities, of course, to be able to do data checks, self-assessments, as well as then various types of onboarding activities. The beautiful thing is that we can be able to track the entire time how our suppliers are responding within this collaboration activity. Are they in fact starting it? Have they not? Has it bounced? Is it unavailable? And we can be able to, of course, always track when those things have come back in as well, driven by notification management, which also will allow us to understand what type of reports we need to be able to follow up on. Again, the 360-degree view of our suppliers gives us the backbone as to how it is that we should be collaborating both internally, but also moving forward in our collaboration with them. Is it a supplier that we need to dive deeper into? Is it a supplier that we can collaborate further and innovate with? Is it a supplier that maybe we need to start looking for alternatives to? This was a quick overview to be able to give an understanding of some of the collaboration tools that exist within Kodiak Hub, understanding how an SRM platform can be able to give you the capabilities that you need to drive forward and orchestrate collaboration with your supplier base. If there's any questions, then we will then now take those in the thread. All right. Thanks everybody for your attendance. If you guys have any questions, then please feel free to ask those now. I see that there is a few initial questions that have come in. There was a question from a attendee, Terry, who had asked if you can have access to a sandbox version of this solution. That's absolutely possible. Of course, it would be best that you would first get in contact with one of our sales reps to be able to further walk through the solution and to be able to align on some of the aspects of a particular use case and need. But absolutely, we do provide free trial experience as well as then proof of concept demonstration. I see that there was a request in the session to be able to look a little bit deeper into the platform. And there was also a question about the recording. You will receive the recording. What I will also say is that there is now a image on screen here. I've just issued a call to action. If you guys are interested, feel free to click on the button that you see in the bottom left-hand corner where you can be able to book a deeper demo of the platform. This will allow you to be able to, again, speak with one of our representatives who can better understand your particular need and use case, and then also walk you through the platform as well. As well as we will also share the recording and the other piece of materials we wanted to share here, which is then the download. So you can feel free here to also on the right-hand side of the screen, click on the download where you can download the PDF of the slides that were shared during today's session as well, if that is of interest to you. If there's any other questions, feel free to ask those now. If you'd like a deeper demonstration of the platform, feel free to click on the button on the left-hand side of the screen, and you'll be able to directly come in contact with our booking link. The booking link will allow you then to find some deeper time in the calendar of one of my colleagues. If there's no other questions, then I thank everybody for their attendance today, and have a great rest of your day. You will receive again a recording of this session following the close.